Your lavender is dying right now, and it looks completely fine while it happens. That's not a scare tactic. A clock started running on every lavender plant in your garden a few weeks ago, and it runs out in the middle of August. What you do before then decides two very different futures. Future 1, a second flush of blooms before summer ends, and a tight silver dome-shaped plant that comes back thicker next spring. Future 2, no second bloom, and over the next year or two, a woody, splayed-open mess with a bald, dead patch in the center. The kind of lavender on half the front yards on your street that everyone assumes is just getting old. It's not old, it's unattended. And almost nobody touches their lavender in July because it's blooming, the bees are all over it, and why cut a plant that's currently flowering feels reasonable. That instinct is the single most expensive mistake in lavender care. So here's the entire July playbook, in the exact order you need to run it, because the order matters as much as the steps. You'll learn the one signal your plant is already giving you today, the single cut that does two jobs at once, and the exact line on the stem your blade should never cross, because crossing it can kill the plant outright. The watering trap that quietly murders more lavender in July than every drought combined. And a way to walk away from this video with free lavender plants for next spring, using nothing but trimmings you were about to throw away. Grab your secateurs. You'll need them by step 2. Let's get into it. Step 1. Read the signal. Everything in this video hangs on one signal, so we start here. Walk out to your lavender today and really look, not at the plant as a whole, at the individual flower spikes. Early in the season, every spike is saturated, almost electric purple. The buds sit tight and plump, and if you run your hand across them, the scent practically jumps off the plant onto your fingers. But as July rolls on, that changes. The color dulls first, rich purple fading toward a washed-out grayish lilac. Then the tiny individual flowers on the spike start dropping or shriveling, and a spike that used to look like a flower starts looking more like a seed head. Here's your working rule, and I want you to actually use it, not just nod along. When roughly half the spikes on the plant have made that shift, dulled, drying, past peak, your window is open. Not when the whole plant is still in glorious full bloom, and not when every single spike has gone brown and crispy either, because by then you've already lost time you needed. Half faded. That's the trigger, and nothing else. Here's why the timing is this precise. Every week you wait past that halfway point, the plant is quietly rerouting its energy, away from building the new growth it needs to survive winter, and into ripening seed instead. In cooler climates, that's recovery time you're burning that you cannot get back later in the season. And if you want a second confirmation beyond your own eyes, watch the bees. When they suddenly lose interest in a plant they were swarming over 2 weeks earlier, they're telling you something you can't see yet. The nectar's finished. The bees always know before you do. Step 2. The one cut that does two jobs. This is the single most important thing your lavender needs from you all year. So I want to slow down and get this exactly right, because it's also the step where most gardeners quietly ruin their plant without realizing it. There are two mistakes people make here, and they sit at opposite extremes. Mistake 1, deadheading only, snipping off just the dead flower stalks and nothing else. That tidies the plant up for the camera, but it does nothing to stop the legginess that's already building underneath. Mistake 2, and this is the dangerous one, getting ambitious and cutting back hard into the thick, brown, woody stems at the base, the way you might with a rose or a hydrangea. Do not do this. Lavender is not built like a rose. It cannot reliably regrow from old wood. Those brown stems carry almost no dormant buds. Cut into them now and you will very likely be staring at the same bare, silent stump next May, wondering what you did wrong. The correct cut lives in the gap between those two mistakes, and it does both jobs at once with a single pass of the shears. Take clean secateurs or hedge shears, and on every stem, remove the spent flower spike plus roughly the top third of the soft, leafy green growth underneath it. You're cutting deeper than a simple deadhead, but you never leave the green. Look closely at any stem before you cut, and you'll see the line clearly. Green and flexible above, brown and rigid below. That line is the one your blade never crosses, not once. As you go, shape the whole plant into a slightly rounded dome. Think of a loaf of bread or a sleeping hedgehog. That shape isn't decoration. A domed plant sheds winter rain instead of pooling it in the crown, and it keeps growth even across the whole plant so it doesn't splay open and collapse under its own weight in a year or two. Why does one cut in one specific month matter this much? Two answers depending on your climate. If you're somewhere warm with a long season, this exact cut is what triggers a genuine second flush of flowers in late summer. Losing that top third pushes the plant into fresh growth, and very often a whole new round of spikes by September. If you're somewhere cooler, that second flush might be modest, or it might not show up at all, but the cut still matters exactly as much because it hands the plant 6 to 8 weeks to regrow and harden that new growth before the first frost hits. Make this same cut in September or October instead, and you're sending tender new shoots straight into the cold to be burned off. Skip it entirely, year after year, and you get the plant everyone assumes is just old. A ring of bare woody legs, a tuft of green on top, a dead cave in the middle. That plant was never old. It was never cut in July. One more thing before you set the shears down. Don't toss those trimmings on the compost pile yet. Set aside a small handful of the healthiest stems in a jar of water, somewhere shaded. We are coming back to them at the very end of this video, and you're going to be glad you didn't throw them away. Step 3. Escape the watering trap. Now we get to the part of the July playbook where the caring, responsible thing to do is exactly the thing that kills the plant. July is brutal. Everything's gasping for water, so you drag the hose around every evening and give the lavender a drink too, because leaving it dry feels like neglect. Here's the problem. Lavender's #1 killer in July isn't heat or drought. It's moisture sitting around the crown and roots while the weather is warm. Warm and wet together is the exact recipe for root and crown rot, which takes a plant from silver and thriving to gray and collapsed in about 2 weeks. And the trap closes here. By the time you see it wilting, most people read that as thirst and water it even more, which finishes the job. A wilting lavender in July is far more likely drowning than dying of thirst. So here's the actual rule. An established plant in the ground, second year or beyond, gets nothing on a normal week. Its roots run deep, built for hillsides that bake all summer unaided. The only exception is a genuine extended heat wave. 2 weeks or more, no rain, punishing heat. Even then you step in exactly once. A slow, deep soak at the base, first thing in the morning, water on the soil and never the foliage, then walk away again. First-year plants are the exception to the exception, since their roots are still shallow. They earn that same morning soak about once a week in dry spells. Lavender in pots plays by slightly different rules, since containers dry fast and may need water every few days in real heat, but the core principle holds. Morning, at the base, only when the top couple centimeters of compost are actually dry under your finger. Evening watering, the thing almost all of us default to out of habit, is the single worst option for this plant, because it sits damp all night long, and warm, still, humid night air is exactly the condition every fungal problem in your garden has been waiting for. Step 4. Swap the mulch for gravel. While we're already down at the base of the plant, check what's actually touching the crown, because this next fix takes 2 minutes and quietly saves plants every single summer. If you mulched your beds in spring with bark, compost, or wood chips, smart for most of the garden, that same mulch now works against your lavender specifically. It holds moisture right against the stems and keeps the crown humid, the opposite of what this plant wants in July. So pull it back until there's a clear, bare ring around the base, roughly a handspan wide. Better still, fill that ring with gravel, grit, or coarse sand. Mediterranean growers have used this trick for centuries. It dries the crown fast after rain, stops soil splashing onto the lower stems, and bounces light and warmth back up into the plant, while making the silver foliage pop against the stone as a free bonus. Step 5. Lock away the fertilizer. Here's the thing your lavender needs you to not do in July. Feed it. That runs against every instinct, since July is exactly when we feed tomatoes, roses, and patio pots. But lavender flowers best on lean, slightly starved soil, and its fragrance, the oils in the leaves and flowers, actually intensifies when the plant grows a little hard and slow. Feed it midsummer and you get soft, sappy, dark green growth that flops open and carries less scent. Worse, in cooler regions, that soft growth won't harden in time and gets killed off first by frost. If your lavender flowered poorly this year, make a note and address the soil next spring instead, with a little grit and maybe a whisper of low nitrogen feed. Right now, the kindest thing in your fertilizer cupboard is the closed door. Step 6. Open up the airflow. One more check before we get to your free plants, and almost nobody makes it: airflow. Gardens fill in fast by July. The perennials you planted a polite distance away in April have flopped onto your lavender, and suddenly it's sitting in a still, humid pocket of dead air. Lavender wants moving air just as much as it wants sun, so take 5 minutes, cut back or stake up whatever's crowding in, and open a clear margin around the plant. In humid climates especially, this one adjustment prevents more disease than anything you could spray on afterward. Step 7. Turn your trimmings into free plants. Now go grab that jar of trimmings from Step 2. July is peak season for lavender cuttings because the stems right now are semi-ripe. Firm enough at the base not to rot, soft enough at the tip to root readily. Pick stems roughly hand length with no flower on them, strip the leaves off the bottom half, and push each about 2/3 deep into gritty compost. Ordinary compost cut half and half with sand or perlite. Water once, set the pot somewhere bright but out of direct afternoon sun, and keep the compost barely moist, never soggy. In 4 to 6 weeks, give a gentle tug. Resistance means roots. Every one of those cuttings is a free lavender plant for next spring. A new hedge, pots by the door, gifts for a neighbor who's been eyeing yours all summer. The cut you made in step 2 just paid for itself twice. So that's the entire July playbook, start to finish. Read the spikes and act the moment half of them have faded. Not before, not after. Make the one cut, spent spike plus the top third of green growth, never into the brown wood, shaped into a dome. Put the hose down unless you're deep in a genuine heat wave, and when you finally do water, it's one slow, deep soak at the base, in the morning. Pull the organic mulch off the crown and swap in gravel. Lock the fertilizer cupboard until spring. Clear the airflow around the plant. And turn what you trim into next year's free plants. None of this is difficult. All of it is timed, and the timing is right now, this week, not sometime this summer. If this cleared things up for you, do 2 quick things. First, drop a comment telling me where in the world you're gardening and whether your lavender's first flush has started fading yet. I read every single one, and it's genuinely how I decide what to film next, based on what's actually happening in real gardens right now, not just mine. Second, hit subscribe and tap the bell because your lavender just handed you this summer's harvest, and the worst thing you can do now is waste it by scrolling past the next video that would have shown you how to keep it going. I'll see you in the next one.